Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phonogenics 101. I am here with the Prince crew. My name is Jeremy Gloff. I am your host tonight. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you'd be kind enough and subscribe to my Patreon, even for a couple dollars a month. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate it. Tonight we're going to talk about Prince. I have a great panel of friends here. We've talked about Prince's first two albums, For You and Prince, and we jumped ahead and talked about Sign of the Times with our friend Jill Jones, which was awesome. Tonight, we're going to talk about his 1980 hugely important, iconic release, Dirty Mind. Let me go around and introduce the panel. Joshua Bean, tell us about yourself and your love for Prince.
Oh gosh, Joshua Bean. I think I'm a late bloomer, actually. Y'all don't know this, but it was actually Diamonds and Pearls was like my jam. And then just being an old soul, going into soul music and just, diving back, I kind of backtracked and slowly went, working my way back through the catalog. And just, he was always the shit, man. He was always my favorite artist, like Stevie Wonder, Prince. They're at the top for me. So that's where I'm at.
Hell yeah. JJ Vickers.
What's going on? What did you want to ask me? I forgot already.
What is your love for Prince?
Tell us about your love for Prince.
Let me see. Well, I grew up on those records. I bought most of them when they were new, and Cat just had it going on, did everything himself, cut out so many middlemen, wrote everything, played everything, arranged it, produced it, did about everything but take the picture. That's the way to do it.
But he dictated the picture too.
Yeah. And I stole a couple guitar licks off of him.
Lisa.
Did you say Melissa?
No, Lisa, then Melissa.
So I love Prince. I didn't own hardly any of his albums. It was just because I didn't own any albums. And I sort of lost track of my love for him until, of course, JJ is like, why don't you love Prince? Why are you not listening to Prince? I'm like, this is a really important question. You should be asking me. But he's a phenomenal musician. And I loved Purple Rain. I lived on that album, and I hadn't listened to it for a really long time. So for me, this has been kind of rediscovery. And listening to this particular album, Dirty Mind, I was like, it is so good. And I remember hearing just a few of the songs off it, like way back. I mean, I'm 100 years old, right? Like way back when. And revisiting that music, going, God, this guy was really good. Every single thing he did was just brilliant. So I'm mostly here just to kind of listen to other people who know way more than me. So I'm just chuffed to hear the conversation. So thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Melissa Riley, a huge Prince fan. Tell us about your love for Prince.
Oh my gosh. Well, I started listening to him in middle school, and I remember when the videos came out for like Delirious and Little Red Corvette, and that's when I just like zoned in on him. I was always like Michael Jackson before that, and then it kind of switched. So I've been listening to him ever since, up until his final album. I didn't skip any. I know he had a phase where people didn't like him in the 90s, but I went through it.
You stuck with him through everything, right?
Yep.
Did you even buy those instrumental, like digital albums as they came out, like the Chocolate Factory and all that stuff?
That was in the MPG Music Club.
Okay.
So that was downloads that we had from joining the club. So yeah, I was in the club. I did all his stuff online, which was he was always ahead of his time then too, like putting his music online. So.
Wow. And I know we're cutting off these discussions around the Gold Experience, but you make me feel like we should move a little bit further ahead and maybe some of those albums because I want to hear what you think of them. I almost want to sit there and I want to have like the seminar with Melissa where she tells us what to
love. I don't know if anybody wants to hear that.
I do. All right. Ann Fearman.
I'm just kind of a bad fan, but a fan since middle school as well, because he was just the most amazing, sexy man I'd ever seen besides the men of Duran Duran. And so I really was into that. I had like Prince all over my bedroom and stuff. It was very sexualized. And now I'm like, wow, it's just kind of a weird time, where parents were like, that's all right, to have to have those posters, right? And I just seeing Prince in all of his glory and this album cover, right? It's just so like in your face, that kind of ushering in the 80s sexuality, which I love. So, but I'm not familiar. I'm a bad fan, and I knew like 3 or 4 of his albums. So this has been a new experience for me.
Cool. Well, I'm very happy to have you. Okay, JP.
I did your first Phonogenics Prince one, and I think Blake was actually there in person for that one. And I missed the last one, and I felt bad about it. So I'm here to support you and listen to the album and just kind of give you my feedback as I go. Actually, I was this weekend watching on Netflix Tom Papa, You're Doing Great, a comedy show. And he had this one line about at a certain point in your life, you start listening to Prince, and then from then on, all of your heroes are perverts.
I love that. All right. Well, Prince's first album was For You. It was kind of disco-y. He had a big old afro on the cover. His second album was the self-titled Prince, which was still had a tinge of the disco. There was some great funk. It was still kind of a pop album. He really shook shit up with his third album. The album was recorded as demos. He played it for the record company, and the legend has it that the record company was like, what the fuck? But it was so raw and so groundbreaking that I believe these are the demo versions. If I'm saying anything that's wrong, is anyone else here a big historian that knows this stuff?
I believe that it was his management who told him to keep it the way it was. He did record those songs as demos, played them for his managers, and with the intention of re-recording them in a regular studio like he did the first two. But because the material was so, I guess you could say, out there, that they thought it would be better off if he just left it more or less the way it is, basically as a demo. And that's what they did. And that's why it has that really dry sound to it. You know, you can tell those guitars are running direct. You know, I don't think there's an amp on anything. And the drums sound like they were recorded in a closet. You know, they're just really compressed. There's no room sound. There's no ambience. Production wise, it's the exact opposite of 1999. That whole album, you know, there's just, you know, it's, delay and reverb and those big stacked synth chords and everything. But Dirty Mind it's just so dry because of that demo thing. And that's kind of what's cool about it, though. You know, it sort of draws you in.
I think
Very
like
raw.
get inside of that world.
I didn't know that. That's very interesting. It makes
I think
a
a
lot
third
of
album
sense
is very
listening to it.
important for an artist. Because, you know, if you would have done another album that was kind of like, had some good songs, but was more of the same, like, I don't think he would have become the icon. So I feel like taking this risk really planted the seeds for Prince to become the legend that he became, in my opinion. So let's take a look at the cover. Here he is in a bikini.
My favorite.
Baller, confidence.
Fucking ball.
Confidence.
He has
Yes.
a rude boy pin on. He has a trench coat. You can see his pubes. Here's the back cover. He has some leg warmers. He's got his legs in the air. I think it's clear that we're not dealing with the poof in the baby blue background in the Pegasus from the last album anymore.
So you're not going to hear any gospel albums from this man. Not anytime soon.
Not
right?
anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, he had his come to Jesus moment.
Sure, yeah, but this was his Jesus moment here. So.
I look at this album as being very punk in a way, and just like fighting against conformity, really not giving a fuck. So let's go into the album. Does anyone? Okay, let's go back to Jeremy Gloff in middle school. I was in middle school. I got into Prince 86, 87 around Parade, and I wanted to go back and buy all the old records.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought Apollonia 6. Then I had to sneak in Vanity 6 because I didn't want my parents to see that there's a song called like Wet Dream. But then I'm like, how am I going to buy Prince's Dirty Mind? So I remember like really having to be sly buying this album because it really had a reputation, because I bought some of like the autobiography, or not the biographies that were out at the time. And it talked about like, this album is so explicit. It's so raw. It's so daring. So in 7th grade, I'm like, I need to buy this record. How am I gonna get? So I remember going to the mall, buying the record, trying not to show my parents this, and trying to like sneak it into the house. And
Mhm.
Was
I
it a
don't-
physical record or was it a cassette?
no, it was a record. I collected vinyl back in '87.
Good man.
Yeah, and so the album is, of course, explicit, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I think, now that we're in 2021, I think it's easy to forget just how daring this was for 1980 to sing
Yeah.
about this kind of stuff. So does anyone else, before we go into the track by track, does anyone else remember the first time they heard this album?
I remember
I
the
just-
first time my neighbors heard it because it was the summer after I got it, and I used to put the boombox up in the open window. And if they didn't like it before then, they learned to like it after that.
Well, I only just started listening to it and I was still pretty shocked by it. And so I think that, at the time, I can't even imagine. I know we're going to do a play-by-play of, every sexual fantasy that he has on Dirty Mind, but it's pretty provocative now. So, that's why I'm always like shocked at his album covers. I just can't get over it. It just makes me laugh.
Like compared to the first two, I feel like he just finds his identity. It's more genuine rather than, we all know sex sells and controversy sells, but it just seemed like he found who he was. He found his voice. He just didn't give a fuck.
I think he was a horny person. Like, this is really what
Yeah.
he's thinking about.
Identity, image, sound, it just all came together for you. This is the beginning right here. This is like when it all starts to come together.
I feel it's like Game On.
Prince is a sexy motherfucker, first and foremost.
All right. Any other thoughts on the album in general before we jump into the track by track?
Well, just to reiterate what he was saying, the first two albums, they are really going for a hit on those two. So they're looking for that big radio hit, and so of course they're a lot more mainstream. But he had already had one hit, and the second single off the second album didn't do quite as well. You can only when you're trying to break an artist at that level, you can only go so long following the tried and true formula. At some point, you have to put your own stamp on it. And like I said, to reiterate what Josh was saying, Dirty Mind is the beginning of when he, it's not fully developed yet, and it's still in the embryonic stages. And then
Not like that.
And then you kind of hear it more. You hear it more come together on Controversy, and then 1999, it's full blown. But Dirty Mind is definitely the beginning of that. It's sort of the embryo of that distinct musical identity that he's forever remembered for.
I feel like on the album cover, he does look sexy and dangerous. Like, that's not fake there. And like, I love the bed springs. Like, didn't he just put him on this? He's like, let's take a picture in front of these bed springs. That's so dirty, isn't it? It's so dirty.
I think the photographer is the one who did that with the bed spring. Yeah.
And isn't there a bunch of outtake photos from the session? I've seen a bunch throughout the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, the song Dirty Mind was if I'm not mistaken, I feel like it was an instrumental track that Des Dickerson wrote. Does anyone know this?
I do not.
Prince traded him to be able to use this track for something else. But I could totally be wrong, and I'm sure the Prince fan base
That sounds right.
is going to go crazy in the comments, but that's what I'm recalling in the top of my head. Dirty Mind, the song, it's such a new wave. I love the Farfisa organ. It doesn't sound like any Prince song. He's screaming at the end like he never had before. We're definitely in the 80s, that 80s beat. Like, I knew the track list before I knew the songs, because I was in 10th grade. I'm like, what's the song Dirty Mind gonna sound like? And to me, it almost has a Blondie sound a little bit with that organ. A very new wave. And I think Des Dickerson, he also wrote He's So Dull from the Vandy 6 album, which also kind of had that similar template. So what do you all think of the song Dirty Mind?
You got the liner notes right there. What does it say in the writer's credit?
All right, let me take a look.
Because Fink wrote one or co-wrote one or two with them on there.
Oh, maybe it was Dr. Fink instead of Des Dickerson. You might be right.
Yeah, and that the story you were telling
Yes,
about
you're
him
right.
swapping. It is Fink.
It's Dr. Fink. Yep, you're right.
Okay. Yeah, that story about him swapping the song, that was Morris Day. Morris Day wrote Party Up, and basically he
Yes.
traded the song for the Times contract.
You're absolutely right. See, good thing you're here to keep me in line.
Keep me honest.
How do you all feel about the song "Dirty Mind"?
Love it.
I think it's a good opening
For
track.
the whole neighborhood.
He just wants to lay you down, and he lets you know that.
Right.
And there's
His
no doubt about
intentions
it.
are clear. Yes.
His intentions are clear. And a lot of these songs is, we're not going to be having a deep philosophical discussion.
Right.
It's just about kind of like
Sexy
primal
time.
animal feelings.
Right. What I love is like it comes in with that drum in the beginning, and it seems like it's a lot longer than it is, but it's only like 15 seconds.
Mhm.
And then till the
It does
rest
feel like a long time, right?
it's like, is it gonna start?
I always felt like the kick drum was a little bit offbeat in part of the song, that it wasn't keeping a very steady tempo. JJ, did you ever notice that? No?
Nope, not at all.
Especially the breakdown in the end. Like, I feel like it's just a millisecond off, but I might be hearing things.
Well, it also could be the fact that nowadays people are so used to click tracks and drum machines and everything else that, this insistence that everything has to be just perfect right in
Quantized.
time. But those little flaws, if you want to call them that, that's what makes it human. That's what reminds you there's a real person making the sound there, not some computer generated noise.
Right. Was this a live drummer on the album? He hadn't started using the drum machines really yet, right?
No, that's all him, I believe.
Yeah, Prince.
Yeah.
And looking at the liner notes, Prince played everything on the album except for Dr. Fink doing the synthesizer on a couple songs. So
two or one.
he did synthesizer on Dirty Mind and Head.
Oh, he played on Head as well?
Yeah. He must have done the
Another subtle
Yeah.
title. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have any other thoughts on Dirty Mind before we move on? All right. Well, When You Were Mine, I actually knew this as a Cyndi Lauper song first.
Yeah.
Play.
I was a huge Cyndi Lauper fan, and I didn't even know it was a Prince cover. The thing I love about Cindy's version is she kept the gender intact, exactly as Prince wrote it, which I thought was, I fucking love Cyndi. Like, I will totally do Cyndi album discussion someday. And I think she's a great songwriter, just a great person. And it's very Cyndi that she just kept the lyrics exactly as Prince wrote it. And for 1983, when She's So Unusual came out, that was kind of daring, I feel like. But then when I went back and heard the original Prince version, his is a little bit more of a, I don't know if tango is the word, but Cindy's was a lot more straightforward with the beat. Prince's is very new wave. I love Prince's version. Go ahead, Melissa.
I was gonna say his is more like an upbeat, like fun. I don't know. Compared to hers, I mean, I like her version, but I definitely like Prince's better.
I don't know
I've
if it's an
never heard
organ.
her version. I have no idea that her version existed.
Really?
Because I keep thinking this song belongs on a different album and that I've heard it from a different album, but Jeremy says that's not true. So I think this might have been the first Prince song I ever heard because it's my favorite Prince song. It's one of my all-time
It's just in my head now.
It's a perfect song. And to me, this is really where I think that he bridges that big divide, especially in 80s kind of new wave, which was very white. And he starts to like come in bringing all these other, like his guitar and things, just all these other elements to a classic pop song. But his lyrics are also very mournful. I love the lyrics in this song. I think they're just perfect. And I even tolerate his high-pitched voice on this one.
Oh, and that's where you and I disagree. I love the high pitch.
I know you do, and I love it on this. I think it works well.
Yeah,
but
it's my
I would
second
love to
favorite
hear
song on
a
the album.
dark version of this. I could see Lena doing a dark version of this, right? That's
yeah.
like way slowed down, and her laying on a piano, you know, shooting up heroin and singing. That's how I imagine her.
I'll pass on that one.
I feel like Prince's vocal is very vulnerable, though. I hear emotion in his, like he was feeling something there. He was working through something.
Yes. Yeah. It was. I feel like after this, he was like, "Fuck that feeling again." You know, like he was able to conjure it. But for me, I always feel like he's not that vulnerable after this. You know, where he's, and it might have been because he's putting on this persona. But I just always saw him as, you know, not somebody who was going to get brokenhearted again.
Right. All right. Anyone else want to jump in about When You Were Mine?
Well, it has a slight precursor to Purple Rain in it. When it goes to the chorus, it's got that suspended chord that he opens up Purple Rain with, except it's A instead of B flat.
Okay. And I think we need to know that it was When You Were Mine, Y-O-U. He hadn't yet gone to the U.
Yes, right.
Which became his like classic, one of his Prince-isms.
Yeah.
Right.
Before texting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He introduced cyber language.
He's always ahead of his time.
Yes, he is. All right. So once again, we're going back to the Jamestown Mall where I had the Dirty Mind record. I'm like, oh my God, there's a song called Do It All Night. Oh my God. What's this going to sound like? And this song, the title is much worse than the song. It's really not that dirty at all.
Right.
It's kind of like almost a throwback rock and roll song, I feel like. I like it. I don't know. Someone else take this one away. How do y'all feel about Do It All Night?
My least favorite song on the album. Just sounds like filler to me. It's like it's like a throwaway pop tune, like something he just sort of tossed out in a couple minutes. You know, I mean, he was a prolific writer, but just because you're prolific doesn't mean everything's a gem. And just like I said, it's my least favorite song on the album. It sounds like he just needed an extra song, so he knocked that one out real quick. Maybe what else he had didn't tie in together in the larger picture. It's not a bad song, but it's not really stand out.
He did it for the title more than the song itself.
It was a good title.
Potentially.
Could be that.
I say the same thing. I agree with JJ.
I like it.
I love Melissa.
I do too. I like the song. I never thought about having a least favorite on Dirty Mind because I just love every song on it. So
I do have a least favorite. This is not it.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
I'm interested to hear. Is this something he ever really did in concert?
Don't think so.
Jeffrey would need to be here.
I was just thinking Jeffrey would be on it.
Yeah, he would know.
He had a friend that was gonna be mad if he didn't hang out with him. So
Yeah.
Urgh.
I know. This one needed context.
All right. Well, we're moving on to the end of side one, a ballad called "Got a Broken Heart Again," and that little crashing thing at the end always scared me when I was a kid because I thought the song was over. Then there's like the, and like it would scare me. Unlike Joshua, I'm not a huge fan of Prince ballads, but I like this one.
I am a fan of Prince ballads.
I'm
Yes,
not.
he loves them.
You're the
He
fan,
loves
and I'm
them.
not.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
I'm like Joshua.
Yes.
It's funny. Just go ahead, a little insight. Like when I got into this, I assumed all Prince fans loved ballads, and
Oh,
this,
that's funny.
like Rude Awakening.
See, I like the funk.
Same
I like the
here.
funk.
I'm shocked.
But I love.
I think
Yes,
his
I love the
ballads-
song.
Yeah. I think his ballads, though, tended to be very, like, more soul kind of music. And I'm just, not
See,
that
that's
into soul kind of music. I mean, I'm
And I
just
just
a
love
goth
it.
girl, I want.
Yeah, it puts
I
it in
don't want
perspective.
that.
Right.
Got a Broken Heart Again. It's a shorter song. I just always love the melody. Like some of his ballads to me are just like such like baby maker bedroom kind of things. And I'm gay. I don't make babies. So, but I can relate to having a broken heart again. I will say, yes, I can get that. And I always did love this song. Any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite guitar solos of his. He plays this like Chuck Berry kind of double stop, and he just hangs on it the whole time, playing it against the chord changes. And that tune's got a lot of changes. It's one of the first tunes I learned when I was starting out. I still got the chord chart thing confused the hell out of me. Like, diminished chords, who diminished them? Somebody kick them or something? Yeah. But with all these jazz chords flying by, and it's an E flat, which bass players hate, so I love it. But with all these chord changes going by, when he goes into that solo in the middle, he just hangs on that same double stop thing and just the root with the fifth underneath it, almost like a Chuck Berry kind of thing, and just plays it against the changes against the whole solo. I just thought that was brilliant. Of course, I love shit like that.
I love hearing about it, so I'm glad you're here.
Yes.
That's interesting. I do like this song. It kind of makes me, like, when you go back and listen to it now, though, it kind of makes me sad, because it makes me realize how much of a romantic that he was. Like, he was in and out of love with all these old songs. And then later he still had the ballads, but here it's more like raw, like,
yeah,
that's just my perspective.
Cool. Yeah, like we said, this album, Lana Del Rey, she was more, I guess Prince, I never think of Prince as like being a lyricist first. To me, it's more about the feeling and the music.
Mm-hmm.
Not all maybe some of his later albums he got, like Sign of the Times was very much about
Right.
Well, I do know that he always dreamt and woke up and then wrote the lyrics and wrote the songs, so.
Cool. Well, that's side one of Dirty Mind. I guess we don't have too much to say.
Short album.
That's a short album.
30 minutes.
8 songs. Yeah.
30 minutes clocked in it. That's crazy.
Wow, that is
Damn.
crazy.
That's like 1/8 of the Lana album. Even though her new album is shorter.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, flipping the album over is a song that I feel is one of my favorites by Prince. I DJ'd a Prince party a couple years ago, pre-COVID, and I'm like, what song can we end with? What's a good song to end with? And I'm like, fucking Uptown, man.
Yeah.
Like, that message.
It's contagious.
It's just such, with society so splintered and fractured, I just love his idealistic message of all the freaks and the rebels come, black, white, Puerto Rican, everybody just to freaking good times were rolling. And, as naive and idealistic as the lyrics are in this one, I'm buying into that. Like, I'm kind of a idealist, and perhaps a utopian world could never exist, but damn it can within a Prince song. And when that song's playing and I'm on the dance floor, that's the world I want. If I could pick Jeremy Gloff, what do you want the world to be? Uptown.
That's awesome.
So I feel like Prince, and that's, when I was a kid, and we're from a place where you really were tortured for being a freak, Prince kind of gave, in his best early work, an outlet to be an outsider and to think different things and to not accept the world as it was and to kind of have a broader vision of how things could be. So that's why I loved Prince when I was a 7th grader walking around the Jamestown Mall with this record.
Hidden. Yes.
Yeah, hidden. Because, the jocks in our school were terrible. And it was great to go home and to escape into this song. The side one is fun, but this song really just takes it to the level that Prince really is one of the only people that could take you to like that. Because I feel like he really did. He wasn't being fake. He envisioned that world, even if it could never be. But I think maybe at a time in Minneapolis, there were probably a little underground scene that was awesome. I can't speak for anyone else here, but I have been part of underground scenes where you just felt like it was bigger than yourself. It was all these things coming together that were so cool. And I think Prince got to be part of that. I'm really going off on a tangent.
It's fine.
I don't know. Someone else talk.
Well, it was his anthem. It was his sort of call to arms for the fan base that he was building. And around that time, he used to open with it a lot. In fact, anybody who does not have a copy of the New Orleans show on the Controversy tour needs to private message me for a copy.
You sent me
He
one.
opens up with Uptown, and they're just, I mean, they come out of the gate swinging, you know, and it's the perfect song for him to open up with at that point, you know, because again, that's his anthem. That's the thing. The effect that you just described that it had on you, that was the whole point of the song, not just for you, but for the millions of us that were buying those albums and going to those concerts, you know, no matter where you were from.
Do you think being a Prince fan in the early days, because I didn't come into him till after he was a megastar, I bet you really did feel like you're part of kind of a secret special society? Because I think he did really collect and attract a group of maybe dreamers and outsiders and intellectuals.
That would be somebody a little bit older than us, because most of us here are about the same age. So we were all getting into them around junior high school, and I would have been like 10 when 1999 came out, you know, so that's, you know, so that was the first time that I heard him. And then of course 84, I'm about 12, Purple Rain, you know, and then you go back and buy the early stuff. That underground thing you're talking about, there was around the time of Dirty Mind, when he was touring behind that album, there was a bit of that, because he was he was initially pushed as a wonder kid, sort of the next Stevie Wonder. And, you know, that's why the first two albums are very, you know, mainstream R&B for that era. You know, they're good albums, but, you know, they're mainstream. They're not that, you know, distinct, you know, whereas with Dirty Mind, and all of a sudden he's putting his own stamp on it. And in that early bit right there, there was that sort of underground thing. He was a bit more of a cult artist for a short couple of years there, starting with this album.
Gloff, I think some of my conversations with like Gabe and Carl, Vinyl Fever Crew, is same thing. I think you tapped into it.
I sure wish they joined our discussion.
Just a voice of a generation, kind of an inside track on an artist before, like when we fell in love with them and the whole world knew them, like they felt like they were part of a special club in a special moment, special era, and seeing greatness like develop. I can't imagine. Like I think Carl said he was at Dirty Mind tour. Can't imagine.
I can't imagine. And can you imagine loving like the second Prince album? Because people loved it. And then this is the one you get after that. Like, can you picture that? I mean,
that's what they deserve.
It must have been fucking like awesome. Because some
the
people
crowds probably weren't even that big. It was probably like smaller, like club type shit. Like,
because I'm certain there's people that hated this album.
Video that though, there's two videos from the Dirty Mind tour. One is in New York. I think it's The Bottom Line, and the other one is Paris. So yeah, that was club stuff, and then he was also opening for Rick James on that one.
Bitch.
I was gonna do it.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
Rick James is from Buffalo, so I just want to point that out. Yeah.
I couldn't believe he started out playing with Neil Young. I just can't picture those two together.
No.
All right, Melissa, do you have any thoughts on Uptown?
I love this song. I feel like it's a fun, like you said, like the utopia, but it also kind of made me wonder, like being from Minneapolis and that knowing that there's Uptown, like what was going on at that in Uptown. It was different, you know, that inspired him to make the song.
I like in the lyrics, it's just like, are you gay?
Yes, that's my favorite. That's what I love, because I think that this one is where he gets really clever, you know, and he's fun. And I like when he allows himself to be fun, you know, and because otherwise sometimes, especially as he got more polished maybe and more bitter, that, you know, he loses some of that fun. And this one, that playfulness with his lyrics when he's so filthy, I mean, it happens throughout the album, but this one with the, are you gay? No, are you? You know, and then it's like, let's go dance. I just think it's a great song.
Something that has maybe been a detriment in my life is I've never been able to just have mindless fun. Because I was part of the raver scene in Buffalo in the mid 90s. And I just remember being there, being so cynical, like, everyone here is fake. they're all just fitting in.
Well, they were. I mean,
They were.
let's be honest, but still, it's
The
still
thing I love
fun.
about Prince is it was like fun with a purpose. It wasn't just fun, mindless fun. It was fun with a purpose. And damn it, I need a purpose. I've always had to have a purpose.
Last thing I'll say, when I went to my Mecca pilgrimage to Minneapolis, around Uptown, jamming this song, being so cliche, fanboying my ass off, like it's just that song. It puts you in a good mood, a happy place. Love it. It's contagious, infectious, all the things.
Cool. Well, I don't have too much more to say about Uptown then. I fucking love it. Love it. And I feel like a lot of the idealism that he kind of started on this did go over into the next album with Controversy. He continued that kind of topical thing. So it'll be fun to talk about that next month. All right, we're moving into the section of the album that's definitely lives up to the title, Dirty Mind. I read about the song Head before I heard it in this book that I have. I should have brought it out because I have it on my bookshelf over there. And they're talking about, some of the lyrics in the song. I'm like, oh my God, this could be so dirty. Legend has it that his original keyboard player, Gail Chapman, would not say the lyrics. And that is where Lisa Coleman entered the band, who later, was part of the iconic Wendy and Lisa. I'm so mad that I kind of dug on Wendy and Lisa on that first podcast we did, because I do love them.
I know that didn't age well. I did too.
I know, because I'm like, I want to add, they're so approachable in some ways, and I want to ask them to be on the podcast, but they're gonna be like, we heard what you said on Sign of the Times about us. And I think Lisa, especially in these early albums, lent such an important. There's a picture of the band on the inside.
Yeah. And
I love the band was Uptown, black, white, female, male. And I think having Lisa in the band, look how fucking cool she was, man. Like, she was just so cool. Can you imagine her going in the studio and saying those nasty lines in the head? So the song is about, there's a bride on her way to her wedding, and Prince decides that he wants to have his way with the bride, even though she's on her way to her wedding. So she gives him a quick BJ. And Prince is not subtle in his lyrics. It's really funky. Like, this is a funky song. They're in the limo. The lyrics are pretty graphic. Someone else take it from here. What do you guys think of the song?
So you mentioned earlier he might have not been the most prolific songwriter, but he could paint a motherfucking picture.
Yeah, I might have been totally wrong in saying that. Maybe that was just
visualize. Sometimes less is more, and raunchy is more, like overtness of it. Like, I don't know. I can see everything happening for better or worse.
And it definitely takes place in Minneapolis. Like, that limo ride was in Minneapolis.
Just paints a picture. Like, he just paints the whole picture.
So,
this is my favorite song on the album. Favorite song.
It's my favorite song on the album too. And what I want to know is, like, is this like something in his mind, like a fantasy he had, or is this something like, who's going to their wedding and says, "Oh, let me just stop and do this first"?
And do you really believe that she was a virgin?
It's definitely a fantasy. Yeah. Like, he saw somebody, like maybe he saw a bride or something and was like, damn, I bet she gives good head. And then a song was born, right? I guess I'm floored by the fact that When You Were Mine is not everybody's favorite song off of this
number
album.
2. Close number 2.
I mean, honestly, I'm struggling with this information right now.
I think Dirty Mind might be my favorite song. I love that new wave.
Dirty Mind is good for the namesake of the album. It's a good song. But this is my favorite. The funk of it, everything.
Yeah.
What about like the synthesizer going and out of it? Like, he used that weird synthesizer.
Can you do that again?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's probably what she sounded like. Yes. Right.
Oh, that reminds me. Hey, Jeremy.
Yes.
What did Cinderella say when she got to the ball?
You're such a hunk, so full of spunk.
No,
Like if
she
you
said,
Right, he was just providing some,
some levity.
sound effects there to help you envision it better,
Okay, the thumbs down are gonna be coming up on this blog. I have a Patreon, Jeremy Gloff. This is the best thing ever. Do you love our podcast? I fucking love it. Okay, so Lisa Coleman, who's a full-on lesbian, correct? Is there saying the lyrics about how you're such a hunk, so full of. I love it. It's so punk rock, and it's so funky. It's like bricklayer funk. Anne, had you ever heard the song before?
I can't even remember it now. That's the problem. Like,
Oh,
I'm
really?
like, I know that he sings this song, but I can't conjure it up in my head at all. This and the sister one are both, they've been banished from my head, evidently.
We have to go back and listen.
I will.
I'm listening to it while we talk.
Yes,
what
I
do you
usually
think,
do.
JP?
But
What's that?
What do you think
About-
of Ed?
I'm on Party Up right now, but let me go back. I go back to head past. Why is Uptown back in there? It keeps on going to different ones. All right, yeah, because it's autoplay and nothing's in order.
oh,
JJ, did you say what you think of the song?
Oh, no, I just said that I assume everyone's heard the live version of it from those tours. No? Oh, you thought that synthesizer or something. He that bit with the guitar that he did at the end of I Would Die For You actually started with the live version ahead.
Oh,
And he does this thing with the, I don't know, he's got like an overdrive and a flanger, I think a delay on there, and he's just got all the sound effects going.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
because that's what it was like. I imagine it like almost like a Benny Hill kind of an action scene in the back of the limo, right? Like really fast paced with lots of noises and goofiness.
Well, I hope it wasn't quite
Some
that.
yakety sax.
She had big tits.
okay.
But thank you for mentioning Benny Hill. Now I have this incredible urge to smack Gloff right on his top of the forehead.
All right. So we get to the end of the song. We hear another. And then we go into a 2-minute song about him having sex with his sister.
Yeah, I'm so glad it was only 2 minutes.
So was she, probably. There's like lyrics about how it stops the juice. Like this is raunchy.
It is
Melissa, is this your
raunchy.
least favorite song?
This is my least favorite song.
Tell us why. Let's start with that.
Just the whole idea of it. Like, another thing, like, where did you come up with these lyrics? Like, did this happen to you? Did your friend tell you about it? Like, it's just
Did you find your dad's porn?
right. Like,
Do y'all think he had sex with his sister?
He had 3 half sisters, right?
Oh, well, they're half sisters.
No, I think it was just a marketing thing. I mean, he decided early on that that was going to be his persona, and he just ran with it. Also, you look at how conservative the country was becoming. You know, that was right when Reagan was coming into office, and it was just shock value because you couldn't do that. I mean, you got to remember at that time, George Carlin's 7 dirty words you can't say on television was still relevant. I mean, nowadays you can say anything on television, but to do that at the time, I think it was just shock value. I think people like to I think people read too much into these things. They talk about, oh, he must have did this, he must have did that. No, he just made shit up. He was looking for a hit. He was building an audience. He found his shtick, he found his gimmick, he ran with it, and he knew that shock value would get attention, and he was right.
I wonder how
But
his
I
sister
don't
felt.
think he does it again.
We're still talking about it.
But I don't think he goes this far again, does he? Obviously,
No.
only,
No.
See, that's the thing. I
Not
think
this far.
he realized that might have been, a little too just.
Crazy.
It's not so much as risque. Yeah, it's just kind of like
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what? That is fetish porn right there, son. You know, I'm not ready to dance to it. You know, it was just fucking weird. And I'm glad that he brought it back a little bit. But no, I don't equate him having sex with his sister.
It's interesting because the song is such like a rock new
Or
wave
he
song.
might have.
He still has the falsetto voice. She didn't wear any
Probably the
underwear.
Song he ever did.
What's that?
Probably the fastest song he ever did.
Yeah.
That thing's fast as hell.
Yeah.
Like, damn, how wired was he when he cut that?
I do like the harmonies at the end when he stacks his.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. I like the song because it's so wrong. Like I just love when anyone pushes a boundary. Like, all right, you want to sing a song about doing it? Okay,
Yeah.
you go, Prince. I mean, I think if he made a career out of that, I wouldn't have signed up
No.
for that.
No.
It's a little weird detour in his discography. Okay.
And one he definitely didn't play once he, became more religious, obviously. I mean,
Mhm.
Right.
this was like first on the chopping block.
Yeah.
But even during
Yeah.
like the Purple Rain tour, did he ever perform Sister? Like this didn't even make it to 1999 era, did it?
I don't
It's not
think
a
so.
very good song. I
I don't
I
think-
think of it as a filler too. You know, like, well, I'll throw this one in and see if I can get away with it.
Wait,
I don't
Melissa,
think
we
he
haven't
ever
heard
did.
your least favorite song yet.
This
This
is
one.
it.
Oh, this is it. I gotcha.
This is it. That's it.
Oh my god. And he was 16. He was underage too, according to the lyrics. So not only was he involved in incest, but underage sex.
Well, I think that's what exonerates him, though, frankly. I think that was a clever marketing thing, too.
There's definitely like a Me Too thing going on here.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I think he must have had a friend that told him something happened. That's what I'm thinking.
it was Morris Day. No, I'm just kidding.
Like Rick
Morris-
James.
Morris, if you're one of the 10 people watching this, I didn't mean that. I just want to mention, I love the font too, because remember he had like that pink frilly font. This is like a cool.
Yes.
I love that. And I like
Yeah.
that the album title wasn't on the front cover. He had to go to the back cover where it was spray painted on the wall.
Yes.
It's so
Yeah.
rock and roll.
It is. It's very rock and roll. I love that they were just demos. I think that fits so well for, because I couldn't understand. I was like, the quality of this is not super great, but that makes so much sense that they were just like, yeah, let's just not waste any money in remaking these, right? We'll just put it out as
How do you think
is.
this album would have sounded fully produced? I think like shit. Or bland. It wouldn't have had the fire.
It wouldn't have been the cult classic that it became because the production is the production combined with probably his most over the top lyrics, the two of them together, and this is why I say that I don't think he's taking from personal experience that combined with, what I've read in biographies. I think he's more or less creating a world that he wants to see happen. Maybe he can't do it literally, but does it career wise, does it with the audience sort of thing. And again, that stark production is combined with those lyrics. That's what draws it in. You're drawn into this world, in this sort of it's almost like an Alice in Wonderland thing where you go down that rabbit hole. And whereas like 1999, as soon as that song opens up, there's those big double stack chords, that big brash sound. It's a very radio friendly sound.
Yes.
1999 is a song that you put on in the car. You don't listen to side 3 of the album in the car unless it's late at night and you're driving home half baked. But in the middle of the afternoon, that's when you put on 1999. It's that big, fresh, bright, summer kind of sound. Dirty Mind is the opposite of that.
There's an urgency
Also, black
about
and
it.
white photography, that was also the perfect complement.
Yeah.
That's part of what makes the whole thing work. I don't think just like a modern or a more state-of-the-art production would have killed it. I think a color photography would have killed it as well.
Good points. Yeah, it's just well packaged.
It's perfect. And like I said, I feel there's a sense of urgency here.
Well, there often is with these sexual escapades.
Yeah, I know that for a fact. A little sidetrack. How the hell Jill Jones, please join our 1999 discussion because she was such a big part of that album. I'd love to hear all of her stories. So let's start a change.org campaign to get Jill. Okay, well, we have one song left, Party Up. This is probably my least favorite song on the album.
Really?
I know it's like another call to arms, like,
yeah.
But I just feel like it's kind of bland. I don't know. This is a Morris Day song, right? That he traded.
According to popular lore, Morris Day wrote it. Prince wanted it for the album, and that was where the record contract for the time came in. He basically said, "You give me this song, and I'll make sure you get signed and got a band behind you."
And he did it on Saturday Night Live, didn't he?
Yep, that's the one where he knocked over the mic stand and walked off stage.
No. Why did he? Why?
He did that shit a lot.
He had an attitude when he first came out. I mean, he had an attitude all the time, but it feels like I think Gloff and I were talking about this earlier, that it felt very much like he felt that he was being pigeonholed, that, already, that, he was being packaged, right? And that he really pushed against it, that this album was him pushing back against those more staid albums and that kind of look that they were trying to go for.
Right.
That soul kind of package, maybe the new Barry White, I don't know, with, the way he was very sexy. Barry White, that is. But, the thing is that this felt very much like Gloff was saying, very punk, that it was him pushing back against that image and claiming that sexuality, even so far as to, be like, I'll fuck anything. Even
like my sister.
Even my sister, right? As long as it's over in a couple minutes, I'm good.
Does anyone love this song?
I like this song. I like that the fact that it's kind of like you said, a call to arms, but more of like the political, like, we're not going to go to war, like,
right.
That kind of stuff. I'm just reading something on here. It says that the thing about Morris Day, he wanted Morris Day was on tour with him, and he wanted Morris Day to do the song with him on tour, and that was the deal. Like, if he did it on tour, then he'd start his own band.
Oh.
I feel like this does sound more like a Time song than a Prince song. Well, that's about all I got for Dirty Minds.
All right.
It's I think it's an album that changed history in its own little tiny small way. It kind of slammed open the door for a more frank and honest discussion about sexuality, even though some of it's clearly fantasy. Maybe even, the opportunity to put some of your fantasies out there without being judged by everybody.
He made room for the Cardi B's in this world.
Yeah.
There'd be no WAP.
That's right.
You know what?
That's right.
If Dirty Mind is good for anything, if it brought us WAP, I'll take it.
Nice. Gloff, did you mention earlier about the Jamie Starr mention in the credits?
Oh, no. Talk about that.
Oh, I was just noticing too. I think that's the first time Jamie Starr makes an appearance.
It did not exist. It was actually Prince.
It's Prince.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
So how is he crediting him? How is he crediting Jamie Starr then being?
What's that?
How is he being credited?
First in a couple different names that he kind of came. What was the other one? Christopher.
Yeah. But what is he being credited for? I guess. Sorry, I was not clear on that.
I think at the time he really had either the record label and or fans confused, really thinking that this person existed.
Wasn't he supposed to be his manager?
People bought into it for a while, but
you guys got the liner notes in front of you. What does it say?
It doesn't say Jamie Starr in these liner notes. It thanks Jamie Starr, but
and it says engineered by.
Engineered by.
Oh, engineered by. Oh, okay. Yeah, because actually, another side note, he was one of the first guys that had a home studio. I mean, that album, even though it's demo sounding, that was like state of the art home recording at the time, for building something in your basement. And so that would that kind of explains the Jamie Starr thing. He did all of that at home and probably in his basement or whatever room he was using. So that's why I gave him the engineer credit, made up the name.
And eventually Jamie Starr would be credited as the producer of the Time albums, and then the Starr
Right.
Company did the Sheila E. albums. So I love the mythology that Prince created around his universe in the early days. Even with the side projects that started to come out between Dirty Mind and Controversy, that's when he started with the first Time album. Was the first Time album 1981?
I think so.
Yep. And then Vanity 6 was 1982, which the highlight of my life is when we have our Vanity 6 discussion. Brenda Bennett, I'm going to be calling you, my friend. So let's do a round robin. Everyone think of this rating on a scale of 1 to 10 of what you give us. I'm going to call on you and say, JJ Vickers, Dirty Mind, scale of 1 to 10.
10.
JP.
7.
Joshua Bean.
Oh God. 9.
Lisa.
9.
Ann Fearman.
7.
7. Melissa Riley.
8.
And I'm going to go with JJ and give it a 10.
Wow.
I don't think it's his best album. I don't think it's his best songs, but I feel like for the cultural impact and the seeds it planted for music and pop culture, I think for the historical importance of it, I give it a 10. Even if
But would you have given it a 10 at the time? Are you only giving it a 10 in hindsight for what it did? I want you to base it on what
just
you
on
think
the songs?
of the songs. Yes, not what it did.
Maybe a 7.
There you go.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, we just did a verses. We have this thing on Twitch. The DJ does different verses on Saturdays, and he put this against Controversy, and they were tied, and then Dirty Mind won the tiebreaker. So
Really?
yeah,
I know Clark said in our last discussion how Prince albums seem to come in pairs. So the first 2 albums were a pair, and I definitely put Dirty Mind and Controversy together.
Yeah.
And also Purple Rain 1999, and then Around the World in a Day and Parade I put together. So I think Clark was onto something.
Never looked at it like that. That's a good,
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
And then, you know, I guess Sign of the Times and Love Sexy, if we're going to keep moving forward. Batman and Graffiti Bridge, Diamonds and Pearls and the Symbol. And that's kind of where it ends for me.
Yeah.
Well, come in the Gold Experience. All right, I'm going to quit babbling.
It's bedtime.
It's bedtime.
It's bedtime.
I'm on vacation this week. You know what? I'm going to upload both these videos today because I don't want to do shit next week.
I don't blame you.
The fans are going to get a double header.
At least somebody is.
Yeah. Well, everybody, we're going to be back next month, and I'm going to pause so we can keep chatting for a minute. We're going to be back next month to talk about Prince's 4th album, Controversy, which is an album I love. And make sure to like the YouTube channel. If you want to join my Patreon, of course, I'll appreciate it. And we will see you all in Uptown.